Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed. It's a day to review the president's speech, and we've got Babajide Ogunsanwo joining us next on this one. Excuse me. Well, Jide, yes, you've looked at the speech. You didn't need to calculate too much because it was clear how long this speech took. But in terms of the content, what stood out for you?
Chamberlain, good morning. I would like to start with the summary of the speech. In the days that we've seen the president, I'll summarize the youth have been speaking, and for me, their speech to the president has been, Mr. President, you are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. In this speech, the president, I'll summarize it as the president is replying to the youth, saying, youths, you are sitting on melting ice. Chamberlain, there are three ways we could look at this speech. The first is we could look at this speech and compare it to the president's speeches during COVID-19. That's the first thing I'd like to do. The second is then look at the content of the speech. And third and final is to look at the president's online communication. So before we go into yesterday's speech, I'd like us to remember what happened during COVID-19. The president gave three speeches. The first speech was on the 29th of March. The second speech was on the 13th of April, and then he gave a third speech on the 27th of April. In these three speeches, the first time the president spoke about COVID-19, he gave that speech standing. The second time he gave the second speech standing, and the third time when things were a bit more stable, he gave his third speech on the 27th of April, sitting down. Each of the three speeches the president gave during the COVID-19 season, they were for 19 minutes. So we saw the president gave three different speeches, each that lasted 19 minutes. So that's what happened in that tense period when the coronavirus started. Yesterday, the president gave a speech sitting down. And this speech, not unlike the 19-minute speeches he gave during the COVID-19 period, this speech was just 11 minutes. And so some could summarize this speech as the president, relative to the COVID-19 period, is more comfortable about handling the protest, and he didn't really have much to say. So that is the speech. But there are some 7 top things that struck out in this speech for those that didn't listen to it, or for those that listened to it and were looking for how do we summarize this speech. And that's what I will also now want us to look at next, which is what are the top 7 most significant parts in this speech.
Yeah.
And if we focus on those top 7 things, the first is the president clearly made it clear that this government isn't weak. If you look at that paragraph where he talked about the promptness at which the government had acted seemed to have been misconstrued as a sign of weakness, because they are taking a decision promptly. And he made it clear that this government isn't weak. So that's the first of the 7 most important quotes in the speech. He had clearly said this government isn't weak. Now, some have talked about the president not showing empathy or showing emotions, but I think there was a paragraph that clearly showed the president's annoyance, and that's when he had talked about, on approving the termination of SARS, I already made it clear that it was in line with our commitment to the implementation of extensive police reforms. That phrase, I already made it clear, allows us to infer that either the president or the president's handlers or those that wrote the speech seem to show some level of annoyance or being upset. The third part of that, of the top 7 quotes, is the president has shown concerns, or from his perspective, that there's a lot of fake news going on, the spreading of deliberate falsehood and misinformation through the social media is another point that the president has shown concerns about, in particular that his government is oblivious to the plaint and plight of citizens as a ploy to mislead a lot of people. Now, the fourth part of the protest is the president is calling on protesters to stop protesting. That is also clear from what the president is saying is urging all youths to discontinue the street protest and asking them to constructively engage the government. So it is clear that the president is taking a position that the protest should now end. The fifth of the seven most important phrases the president also talked about was there will be new salaries for policemen. What this means is that the 13 trillion naira budget that was presented to the National Assembly will most likely go through the door and the budget wouldn't be passed soon. The president has talked about the finalization of a new salary structure for members of the police. It is unlikely that the president will want to delay this salary structure into the 2022 budget, which means that the 2021 budget may not be approved soon, and we'll still see new numbers for the 2021 budget. Now, here's the sixth thing. The president is taking a position that the facts available should be made to all those that feel that there have been protests, but the government is saying that people, and especially the international community, that there is more behind the news. It talks about, we thank you and we urge you all to seek to know all the facts available before taking a position or rushing to make a judgment and hasty pronouncement. What this means is there is more going on than perhaps we all know. And so the president didn't mention Lekki, but from this phrase, it allows us to infer that there is more behind what is going on, or rather the president believes, or the president's handlers believe, that there is more behind the street protest and there's more behind what happened with the Lekki shooting, or for now, the president will say the alleged shooting at Lekki. And finally, the president talked about the government respects and will continue to respect all the democratic rights and civil liberties of the people. And so these are the top 7 things the president has talked about. Yes, there's no mention of Lekki, there's no mention of what had happened, and the president has made it clear that there's a lot of fake news going on and that there is more behind the news. And so, like I started, my summary is the youth speech has been to the president that, Mr. President, you are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. And the president in this speech is telling the youths that, youths, you are sitting on melting ice. But here's what I also want to talk about.
Okay.
It's about the president's online communication, and we need to be able to look at the fact about that. Chamberlain, in March 2015, which was that month where the president was into his final month of campaign for the elections, March 2015, the evidence we have today is that during that month, the president tweeted 515 times. That is how important the campaign was to him. 515 times, 515 tweets in the month of March 2015. Chamberlain, here's what I mean. In that month of campaign, the president was tweeting at an average speed of 17 tweets per month. In October this month, which we are in, the president has only tweeted 113 times, which is just an average of 3 tweets, an average of 4 to 5 tweets a day. And so what we see is that in terms of online communication, which is where a lot of youths are, there's a significant difference between candidate Muhammadu Buhari of March 2015 and President Muhammadu Buhari of October 2020. This means that it is either...
Okay. Could we be seeing the principle of the law of aerodynamics in play?
Maybe, right? I'm not too... I'm a bit obsolete. I'm still on physics, but the statistics and the facts shows that it's either way, especially when it comes to online communication, which is where a lot of the youths are tweeting and posting at. We've seen a significant difference from candidate Muhammadu Buhari of March 2015 and President Muhammadu Buhari of October 2020. So it's either the president's handlers are letting him down, or there is just not enough to say.
Well. So there you go. Thank you very much indeed, Jide Ogunson, our data and information analyst with those.